Hello viewers, in this video I'm going to show you the procedure I use for cloning the data from a computer with an old MBR partition table to a new PC using the GPT partition table. GPT came in with Windows 8 and there's a requirement for updating to or installing Windows 11. So if the old PC originally came with Windows 7 and was upgraded to Windows 10, the disk is likely to still have an MBR partition table. Now, there is a command called MBR2GPT which can do this conversion, but there are limitations, and if the process fails, it can leave the original disk unbootable. So I do not use this command anymore. Before doing this procedure, I strongly recommend taking a backup of all your files, documents, pictures, music, and videos, as there is some risk involved during the cloning process. If you're uncertain of the process, then please seek out an IT professional and do not attempt the process yourself. This video is just a demonstration of the procedure for entertainment purposes. So let's dive in. So what we're going to do, we're going to open up a command prompt, as you can see on my screen, and we're going to use a tool called DiskPart. This is what I use. Basically, it will list up all the various disks on your computer, and you can then do all the processes you need. However, before I do this process, I am going to run a check disk on the old disk. This will look for any errors, any in the file system. It does take a long time to complete, so I'm not going to record the entire process. So this video could be 8 hours long, and nobody wants that. Don't think YouTube would approve either. So we're going to do that first of all. I'll obviously stop the recording and pick it up when it's finished. So I know the drive because all the drives are connected to my own PC, and I know that the old disk is on the G drive. So I am going to type in chkdsk g:/r, and we want to force the dismount. Yes. And this can take quite a while to get through, but once it's started, you don't want to stop it. I know that this disk should be all right because I've had to run the process on it once before. So we're going to let that complete, and then we'll move on to the next part. Okay, so with checklist now complete, and you can see that took nearly 4 hours, we need to prepare the new disk for the GPT partition table. So we do that with a command called diskpart. First thing we do is to list the disks, and we do that by typing list disk. So let me just get this running. There we go. So list disks or list disk. So as you can see, we have 4 drives available, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Disks 0 and 1 are my PC's own disks. Disks 2 and 3 are connected by USB, and those are the 2 disks that we're going to use. Now to the right, you can see under GPT, there are asterisks. And those asterisks are attached to my own disks 0 and 1. Disk 2 and 3, there's no asterisk, which means they are in MBR format. So we're going to use disk 2 because that's the new disk. So we're going to type select disk 2, which is now a selected disk. If I do list disk, you can now see to the left there's an asterisk beside disk 2. So you know you've selected the right one. Now, all we need to do is start preparing it. So just to be on the safe side, I know it's a completely clean disk, but I'm going to double check by typing list part to show any partitions on that disk. And it says there's none, but I'm going to clean it anyway. So we type in the word clean. Disk is now definitely clean. So now we've done that, we need to make it a GPT disk. So we do that by typing the words convert GPT. That's it. So now if I do list disk, you can see next to the disk itself, here we've got an asterisk. So it's now definitely ready to go. Now, what we do now is to create two partitions on the disk. So the first one is create partition UEFI size equals 250. That's 250 megabytes. And hit enter, and that's that done. Now we need to do a quick format of that as FAT32. Let's format quick fs equals FAT32 and give it a label of system. Can't type today. Hit enter. Okay, so now that is correctly formatted as a system partition. And then there's a second partition we create, which is known as MSR. And that's 16 megabytes. Now if I do list part or list partition, we have three partitions on there. Standard reserve partition, the system partition, and then another reserved partition, which is the MSR partition. So now we exit from disk part and we move on to cloning the data position from the old disk. So for cloning the disks, I use this program called Minitool Partition Wizard Free. It's version 12.9 is the current version. It's free to use. There is a paid version with more features, but the free version does everything you need for this. So disk numbers are different in Partition Wizard. There's no disk 0. It starts at disk 1. So disks 3 and 4 are the ones we're dealing with here. So as you can see, I've got the disk 3 showing as GPT, showing its size of 223. It's a 256 GB or 250 GB SSD. And disk 4 is the original drive. And we're going to clone this partition, G drive, into here. Now, obviously, you can see that it's got 930 gigabytes partitioned there, and there's only 223 gigabytes available, but it will change the size accordingly as you migrate it. So there's more than enough space on the on disk 3 for this for the data from this drive, so it shouldn't be a problem. So we go to Copy Partition Wizard. And then we scroll down to disk 4, and we are going to use a G, this one, as the source. And we're going to put it onto disk 3 into this empty area. So that all looks good. So that's showing the layout of how it's all going to go together. So if I now click finish, and you can see this is the layout as it will be. Disk 3, as you can see, it's sized it accordingly, not going to be an issue. So now we press the apply button. I've got loads of applications open, but I'm not worried because the disk isn't in use. So I'm going to click yes, and off it goes. And again, this can take quite a while because there's 80 odd gigs to transfer, but it will transfer everything. So we will come back to this once it has finished for the final stage, which will be making the disk usable and bootable. Okay, so as you can see, the process for cloning is now complete, and on disk 3, you can see a new D drive, the NTFS, all the data that was the G drive from the old disk. So that just leaves us one last thing to do, which is to set the new disk to be able to boot. And so I'm just going to swap to the control panel, or the command prompt, I mean. And we're going to go back into disk part and list disk. And you can see all the disks on there. You can see disk 2 is now GPT, and there's no space for any more partitions. The disk is fully partitioned. So we're going to select disk 2. List partitions. And we need to select partition 2. And we need to give it a drive letter, the only temporary drive letter for the final part of this task. So I'm going to use Z. Okay, so we now have a Z drive. So we now exit from disk part. And then finally, we set the boot files to the system partition. So we do that by typing in bcd boot. Actually, we need to check which drive that is. Now it's in the partition program, it says it's the D drive, but I just want to double check that. So go to dcolon and dir, and I can see a Windows or a full installation there showing 149 essentially gigabytes free. The old drive shows it's G drive, so I'm going to check that as well, which should have exactly the same file structure. It does, but it's also, you can see it's 908 gigabytes free. So we'll go back to dcolon, and we're going to type in bcd boot, and it's going to be dcolon / Windows. Oh, really cannot type today. /s. Okay, then the drive of the system partition, which is the Z drive, /f UEFI. And the boot files are successfully created. So now what you do is to connect that new drive up to the PC and switch it on, and it should boot perfectly well. So that's the end of this session. I hope you found it useful, entertaining if nothing else. And like I say, if you feel that it's beyond your ability, there's no shame in seeking help and advice for how to do this job. Don't risk losing your data if you're not completely happy with it. So it's a bit of a different video from my previous videos, a little bit more structured, even though you probably wouldn't guess. You can see I'm doing this for real. It's with all the errors and hiccups and things like that. But I hope you found it entertaining. And if you liked it, please click the like. And if you like the channel, please click subscribe. And I will see you on the next one.